Hi, I'm Igor Smirnov, International Grandmaster and chess coach, and you're welcome into this new lesson called Gambit Rules. Recently I received an email from my student where he shared his game with me. I found it quite instructive. Although this is a short game, it illustrates a few important practical rules of playing gambits. And that's why I'd like to discuss it with you and to analyze how to play gambits and how to counteract gambits. Okay, let's get it started. e4, c5, knight f3, knight c6, b4. Perhaps you're familiar with this gambit already. I proposed it in one of my previous lessons, that's why I will not comment it too much right now. Black took with the knight. Just a quick note, if black takes with a pawn, then white somewhat deflected this pawn from the center, and white can push d4, obtaining pawn pair in the center and threatening d5. Okay, let's go back to the game. Black captured with the knight, but nevertheless white can build a strong pawn center by playing c3 and d4. Pawn takes, and black played d6. d5 may look more ambitious for black, but in that case, white can capture the pawn, following with knight c3, gaining a tempo for development, and also black's queen became an object for an attack for the white species if it moves somewhere along the 5th rank. d6 was played in a game. Okay, now let me make one general note. If you'd like to make a real training for yourself and to get real practical benefit from watching this lesson, then I encourage you to think by yourself and not just listen to what I say. So try to figure out how you would play here. For example, in this position, how would you play as white? Please think about it. It's a good idea to pause the video sometimes, think by yourself, and after that resume the video and compare your ideas with the actual game continuation. White played d5, and this is the best move for sure. White is attacking opponent's knight, forcing it to go away somewhere. At the same time, white gets more space, opens a long diagonal for his pieces, for his bishop, maybe even for his queen. White can go queen d4 in some variations. That's why it has a lot of benefits for white. Now there is a problem that black needs to resolve: where to move his knight. What do you think about it? Where should black go? In the game he played knight e5, and it makes sense for sure. We've been taught to put pieces in the center, and from this point of view this is a correct move. However, in this particular position there is another important thing that we need to take into consideration. Here is the rule. When you are behind in development, avoid exchange of your developed pieces. Let's apply this rule for the current position. Well, you may be thinking that black is equal in development, he is not behind. For the moment it's true, but let's not forget that white played a gambit. He sacrificed the pawn for enabling his quick and natural development. White can bring his pieces into the game very quickly. He can go bishop b5, maybe queen e4, bishop b2, knight c3, and he's done. White can do all these moves very quickly and without any problems. If we look at the black's position, then his situation is much more difficult. It's not that simple to develop that dark squared bishop from f8. The light squared bishop from c8 has no good available squares, and in general you can see that black's development is complicated. That's why we may expect that white's development will be much faster and he will be ahead in development. From this point of view, the black's decision of trading his knight and putting it on the e5 was wrong. Once again, here's the rule. When you're behind in development, avoid exchange of your developed pieces. Otherwise, if you don't follow this rule, you may face the situation when the battles keep going while you have no active warriors. And of course, in such a situation, it will be very difficult to counteract opponents' plans. Okay, let's move on. What should White do now? What do you think? He should play bishop b2, and that's the best move for sure once again. Now let's have a look at another rule, which is one of the core ideas for playing all gambits. When you're playing a gambit, try to combine your development with attack. This is one of the main advantages that a gambit can give you. So try not just to develop your forces, but make these moves with the tempo, or develop and attack simultaneously. When you do it, you can realize your plan and prevent an opponent's plan simultaneously. And of course, you'll be on the top in such a situation. White followed this rule with his previous move d5 and now with his move bishop b2. By using this idea of combining your development with attack, White is able to continue his development while Black cannot do the same because he has to respond, he has to protect his pawn somehow. Actually, it's nearly impossible to protect the e5 pawn normally, because if Black plays something like queen d6 or queen c7, White will go bishop b5 check, bishop d7, bishop takes, and now Black either has to centralize his king, which will be certainly very dangerous and very bad, or capture with a queen, but in that case White can capture the pawn. This means Black can't really protect his e5 pawn and he needs to find something else. At first sight, knight f6 looks very good, counter-attacking White's pawn e4, but it turns out to be not a real threat and White still can take the pawn because knight e4 is impossible. White will reply queen a4 check, taking Black's king and e4 knight simultaneously, thus winning a piece. That's why in the game Black decided to abandon this pawn and just play e6. White took the e5 pawn. Now White regains material balance, and in some variations White is threatening to play d6, locking Black's bishop on its initial square. It may be attractive to play bishop b4 for Black, but after knight c3, Black suddenly appears in a trouble because the g7 pawn is hanging. White is going to take it, capturing the rook in the corner as well. And once again White is threatening queen a4 with a double attack of Black's king and bishop. That's why bishop b4 looks active for Black, but in reality it rather creates problems for Black, not for White. Okay, here's a question for you. How would you proceed here as Black? In the game, Black decided to neutralize White's d5 pawn and he took e takes d5. It may seem very logical. Black is trying to prevent an eventual push d6 and it opens a diagonal for his bishop, enabling its development in the future. But at the same time, this is a major mistake because Black violated one of the very important rules. Here is the rule. When you are behind in development, keep the position closed. In other words, do not open a position. From this point of view, the Black's previous move e6 and especially his next move e takes d5 were the steps in the wrong direction. Now you can see the difference. Let's have a look at the position 2 moves before. Although White is more active and maybe he has some chances for developing an attack somewhere in the future, but right now it's quite difficult for white to start any real direct attack on the black's position. Black doesn't have any real weaknesses, and there is no way for white to break through and to start an invasion. After these moves e6, bishop takes and pawn takes, black opened a lot of lines, and now white can attack the black's king along the e line. White has the d line opened, white has those diagonals for his bishops, white can bring his bishop or queen on the diagonal a4, e8, and in total, as you can see, white is able to start the direct attack on the black's position. And that's why black should not have opened the position. So the rule states, when you're behind in development, when you're a defender, try to keep the position closed and do not open a position. Okay, now it's the white's turn. What do you think about it? What should white do? A lot of players would simply recapture on the d5, with a pawn probably. But in the game white played knight c3, and this is a brilliant decision. Once again, the main ideas of a gambit is to combine your development with attack. So your primary goal is to finish your development quickly, and you should always try to combine your development with attack. That should be your primary focus while playing a gambit. That's why knight c3 is an excellent move. White continues his development, and also white creates some more threats of putting the knight somewhere on the b5 or d5, aiming at the c7 square. It's pretty interesting that after d takes e4, white even can go into an endgame, and white's advantage in development is so huge that even in an endgame black is defenseless. If black covers the king with bishop d7, white will go bishop b5. Same will happen after king e8. If black goes king e7, then white can go knight d5 or bishop d6 check, and black loses his f8 bishop, and you can see that black's lonely king is attacked by all white's forces, so it's completely losing. Another normal looking move, knight f6, doesn't work as well. White will go bishop b5 check, bishop d7, and here probably white has a lot of ways for getting an advantage. And the simplest way is to take an f6. Black doesn't really want to disrupt his pawn structure. He'll probably have to take with the queen, but after that black has to centralize his king, and this looks very bad for black. White is ready to attack along the d-file. He has serious advantage in development, and most likely black will be crushed very soon. Now we can see quite an interesting situation. It's rather the beginning of the game, and black did not make any blunder, but still his position is nearly losing. It's very difficult even to propose any normal move for black. His f8 bishop cannot move because it has to cover the g7 pawn. Knight f6 does not work, as we know. D takes e4 doesn't work. Light squared bishop hasn't any good squares to be placed on, and in any case white is always ready to go bishop b5, and black should be ready to play bishop d7. You can see it's very difficult to propose any normal move for black. It looks strange, but I hope now you understand the situation very well. By his last moves, black consequently violated a few important strategic rules. First, he exchanged his developed piece by playing knight e5. Next, he started to open a position by playing e6 and e takes d5. And because of these mistakes, now white's advantage is already decisive. Black played f6. It may look like a little bit strange move, but as we have seen before, it's not so easy to propose any good idea for black. How would you play here as white? Should white go bishop d4 or bishop g3? None of them. Once again, when you're playing a gambit, you want to continue your development quickly and combine your development with attack, and that should be your primary focus. That's why the moves of our moves backward are definitely not in our plans, and we should try to avoid them as much as we can. White played knight takes d5, bringing a piece into play and threatening knight c7 check. Although white sacrifices a bishop, f takes e5, it gives white an excellent possibility for an attack with queen h5 move. As you can see, once again, white is combining his development with attack. If black goes g6, then white will take queen takes e5 with a double attack of black's king and rook, so at the very least white will win material, and also white probably can continue his attack. For example, white can go bishop c4, maybe queen f4. Queen f4 perhaps is not a good idea, but okay, at least white can capture the rook, getting a material advantage in addition to his superior attacking position. That's why in the game, instead of g6, black played king d7. Now, of course, it looks very dangerous, but at least black doesn't lose material immediately, and he saves some chances to defend against white's attack and to save his material advantage. Now here's the next question for you. How would you play here as white? White played another great move, long castling. At first sight, it seems dangerous, because the white's king is very much exposed here and black can attack it with bishop a3 check and something like this. That's why I think that a lot of players will make another move rook d1, trying to exploit the same idea of attack the black's king over the d file and also the black's queen on d8. But in that case, black can make queen a5 check, and now white either has to make an awkward move king e2 or play rook d2, putting his rook under a pin. In both cases are not what white ideally would like to get. And that's why in the game, once again, white played long castling, combining his development with attack. Black really played bishop a3 and king b1, and now we can see the situation that black has no real way to somehow exploit the white's exposed king. It's even difficult to find the way to prepare that attack. Your king cannot be attacked if your activity is higher. It's not an important rule, because in most cases we think that if our king is exposed, it will be attacked by an opponent. However, it cannot happen if your activity is higher, because in that case your opponent will have no way to bring his pieces towards your position, and thus there will be no real way for him to make any threats to your king. So you may be safe even if your king is exposed, even if your king is completely exposed, but your activity is higher and your position is superior. There is one funny thing here. In addition to all other threats that white has, now white also has an idea of playing queen h3 check, capturing that bishop on a3. So as you can see, black's attacking attempt, bishop a3, failed completely. Black played queen f8. This is a multifunctional move. Black removed the queen from upcoming discovered attack. He protected his bishop on a3 and also covered the squares f5 and f7. White replied queen takes e5. This is a great example of the situation when a threat is stronger than its execution. Of course, white can make a discovered check right now, but in that case black king will try to escape somewhere. That's why instead white took the pawn, saving all his threats of making a discovered check with his rook, bishop b5 check or queen c7 check, something like this. White saved all his threats possible for the next move, and it's very difficult for black now to withstand against all of the white's ideas. Black played king c7, king c6, sorry, trying to escape, but here queen c7 mate. King c6 wasn't the best move, but black's position is hopeless anyway. Although it was a short game, it illustrated a few important rules about playing a gambit. Now let's make a final summary. The first rule: when you're playing a gambit, you should try to combine your development with attack. This is one of the core ideas behind any gambit, and this is one of the main advantages that a gambit can give you. By applying this idea, you can finish your development quickly, get advantage in activity, and start your attack. That's what White did in this game, and as you can see, an opponent was crushed very soon. Also, we need to know how to play against a gambit, so here are a couple of rules that we were able to observe during this game. The rules that are marked by red font: do not open a position and do not exchange your developed pieces. Both of these ways will rather help your opponent to start his attack, and of course you should not do it. Thus you should keep the position closed and you should not exchange your developed pieces. And the item that is stated above them, developed pieces, it may seem trite. We all know that we need to develop pieces, but it means that this should be your primary focus. When you're facing a gambit, you should not really think of how to refuse this gambit, how to realize your plan, or how to control the center or do anything else. Your primary focus should be just to develop your pieces. This is a practical rule for the situations when you face an unknown opening, and especially when you face an unknown gambit. Okay, let's have a look at any random example. Let's say you're playing black, you're playing Sicilian, and your opponent uses this gambit with d4 and c3, so-called Mora gambit. Let's say you have never seen it before and you don't know the theory of this line. So how should you proceed? You should recollect the rules that we discussed. Keep the position closed, do not exchange your developed pieces, and your primary focus should be just to finalize your development and to develop all your pieces. Thus you can play d3 to keep the position closed, to avoid opening of the c line, and after that, no matter what white do, you can just finish your development quickly. Play knight c6, knight f6, something like d6, e6, bishop e7 and castling. Yes, you will get a slightly worse position and maybe white will be a bit more active, but at least you'll be able to finalize your development and to get a normal position. You will not be crushed in the opening. I just make random moves to illustrate an idea. You don't need to do something special here. Just finalize your development somehow. Play castling and bishop d7. You'll get a normal position and there will be a long game ahead, and you'll be able to outplay your opponent later on. This is a practical advice that will help you to pass the opening stage safely when you face an unknown gambit. These rules may look simple, but these are important practical guidelines, and if you keep them in mind while playing gambits, you'll play confidently and you will know what to do. There is another little thing that I'd like to quickly discuss regarding this game. There is one question that I often receive from my students while reading your messages, and yesterday I was in the local chess club and once again people asked me this question, so I'd like to answer it here. And here it is. What if you're an adult person and you're not a professional player yet, you're just an intermediate or beginner player and you'd like to improve your game significantly? Is that possible or not? Very often we can see that children can get a massive progress in their chess development, while for adults usually it's not such an easy thing. And I'd like to answer this question right now. One of the interesting things regarding the game that we just analyzed is that in most cases, while observing games on the internet, you will see the games of world top grandmasters. while we just analyze the game, which is the online blitz game of a player with only 1,800 of rating. Still, you can see that the game was excellent and all the moves that White played in this game were completely perfect. Another interesting thing is that Dennis, it's the real name of the White player, just several months earlier had a rating of 1,300. Now he has a rating of 1,800, and he plays such high quality games that I'm sure his rating will keep going up more and more. This is the progress that many children cannot achieve. So I mean, if you're thinking about this question of can you progress or not, then yes, you can. I have a lot of such examples and I publish them regularly. I receive them constantly, nearly every day, and I publish them regularly on the website. You can see them in free lessons, in comments of different people. You can find a lot of such stories. So this is the realistic goal for sure. That's not a matter of age. Usually people use the same methods and ways of training and thinking about chess, and that's why their results are also rather stable. But it's not a matter of age. If you're ready to replace your old habits by new, more effective ones, then you'll be progressing for sure. If you're ready to change the way you train and think about chess and think while playing chess, there will be no limits for you, and you can progress. To be completely honest, if you'd like to become one of the world top players, yeah, you'd better start your chess career in the very young age. But if you just want to become a strong player, a title player, this is the realistic goal in any age, that's for sure. So don't worry about it. As I said before, an important thing is to be ready to try out something new, and if you haven't tried this B4 Gambit before, then why not to try? Below this video you can find the links to my previous videos with an analysis of this video. If you haven't seen with an analysis of this opening, sorry. If you haven't seen them yet, you can do so now, and after that give it a try. At least you can play it in your training games, and after that, if you like it, you can try to play it in more serious competitions. If you have any questions or comments regarding this video, please place them in the comments area below this video. I'll try to answer all the questions when I have some time. And thanks for watching this video. I hope it was helpful for you. I wish you a lot of nice victories. Have a good day. Goodbye.